Howdy folks, welcome back to Doing Brew. This is part 2 of my complete bathroom remodel series. In this video, I'm going to cover the installation of Durock cement board underlayment. Now for this project, I'm going to be using 1/4 inch Durock, and I'll cover how to properly cut, install, secure, and finish your Durock subfloor in preparation for a floor tile installation. Now of course I'm doing a bathroom remodel, but you'd want to follow the same process for installation of Durock over a wood subfloor in a kitchen, a foyer, really any other room. Now I'm lucky. The house I'm working in is only about 8 years old. Everything is still pretty plumb and true, and that includes the plywood subfloor. It's still very level with no high points or sags in the floor. If I did have that trouble, I'd have to use a belt sander and smooth down the high points, or use a floor leveling compound to fill in any of the low spots. But as I said, I'm pretty fortunate and we can go straight to the installation of the Durock. And the first thing I need to do is mix up some thin set or mortar. And this will be applied under each sheet of Durock to provide a very stable platform for the application of our tile. Now I want to mix this up a little thinner than what I'd use for a tile installation. And I'll pour a puddle out on the space where I'm going to apply my Durock. And I'll trowel it out with my trowel. And it took me a while to figure this out, but a trowel is a pretty cool tool. And this is a 1/4 inch by 3/8 inch trowel. And what the trowel does is, besides making those cool lines in the mortar, is it measures out the exact right amount of thin set you need underneath your Durock, or in case of a tile install, underneath your tile. Now we have our Durock sheet in place. I'm going to walk on it just to work out any large air bubbles, and you're going to see me kind of nudge it into the corner. Now that's just to ensure that I'm true into the corner. I don't want it tight against the corner. I'm going to back it out from each wall about a 1/4 inch to allow for expansion and contraction. Now, for example purposes, I'm sketching out some grid lines here to show you all where to place your screws. And I'm going to be using a rock-on screw. It's a special screw designed for use with Durock or Wonderboard, any kind of cement board product. Now, to be in compliance with my local codes as well as ANSI standards, you don't want to install your screws any closer than 2 inches from the sides, and then every 8 inches on center for the interior portions of your Durock. This will ensure a very solid substrate for your tile installation. So let's go ahead and secure our Durock. Aiden's going to be securing the Durock with, as I said, rock-on screws. These are special screws designed for use with Durock board, and he's using a 1 5/8" screw to screw that down to that plywood subfloor. While he's doing that, I'm going to go out and cut our next board. This is a relatively easy cut to make. It's going along the opposite wall in the bathroom, so all I need to do is trim off about 8 inches from one side. So I make my marks, I draw a straight line, and then I'm going to use a carbide tip scoring tool to just score a line along that line that I drew out there. And I'm just kind of breaking the integrity of the top of the board, if you will, and that's going to allow me to snap it, and then I want to flip it over and rescore that same line, and then that piece of scrap will just let loose nicely. And I'll trowel out the next portion of thin set onto the floor, and we'll use the same procedures to secure this board to the subfloor. And we'll take a moment here to enjoy the music of Jonivan Jones. There's a link to Jonivan's music in the description, so check that out if you're interested. So both of these two sheets are set exactly the same way, on a mortar bed and then secured with the rock-on screws 8 inches on center. Now the next piece of Durock is going to be a bit more challenging. Now you'll notice here that I've offset the intersections of the Durock. You never want to have a 4-corner intersection. In fact, you want to make sure that your intersections are more than 12 inches apart. Okay, so here we have to cut out around the toilet flange and also that little notch up there by the tub. So what I've done is I've cut out a piece of cardboard about the shape of what I need to cut in the Durock, and then transferred all my measurements over. And the most difficult cut we have to make is that 7-inch diameter cut for the toilet flange, but that's not insurmountable. So here's a quick look of how I transcribe the measurements onto the cardboard in preparation for the cut. Now, I've already cut my Durock to the rough square shape that I need. And the first intricate cut I'm going to make is for that notch around the tub. So I'm going to mark out 6 5/8 and draw a line. And then mark out 2 1/2. Draw another line. Then it's just a simple process of cutting this little notch out with the jigsaw fitted with a masonry blade. Now you could use the scoring tool for this, but I like the jigsaw because it's a little bit more exact and you're not going to tear up the Durock as much. It makes for a much cleaner cut. Okay, now I'm going to mark for the center point of the toilet flange. So I'm going to transcribe the measurements that I took in the bathroom and draw what amounts to a crosshair, and that intersection is going to be the center point for my 7-inch diameter hole I need to make for the toilet flange. Okay, so with that in mind, I've now identified the center of the hole I need to cut for the toilet flange. Now, there's just a little trick. It's a 7-inch diameter hole, so I've got a string that I'm going to mark a 3 1/2-inch radius mark on. Aiden's going to hold it for me while I just move around the circle. And while this is not an absolutely perfect circle, it's certainly going to get us well within the ballpark for the cut we need to make for our toilet flange. Now, using the jigsaw again with a hole I started in the center with a drill bit, I'm going to go ahead and cut out that toilet flange. Alright, with that cut complete, let's do a quick dry fit, make sure everything looks good and fits nice and snug. But remember, we do want to maintain that 1/4 inch gap for expansion. So put down my mortar bed and we'll ease our final piece into place. And that's looking pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and pull it off the tub here. Make sure I've got that 1/4 inch gap. And need to mention here at this point, you'll notice that all of the seams around the Durock are anywhere between 1/8 of an inch and 1/4 of an inch. You don't want to go less than 1/8 and you don't want to go more than 1/4 inch. And that's because as you apply your self-adhesive fiberglass reinforcing tape, you're going to work some mortar into that seam. You don't want it to be too big, but you don't want it to be too small because you want to be able to work a little bit of mortar into that seam. And that essentially will set up and make one large cement board floor, if you will. Now, just as before, my first batch of mortar, this is the same mortar I used to set the cement board, I mix it up a little bit thin because I want it to go through that mesh tape all the way down to the subfloor and be a full fill of the void that is the spacing between the Durock. And then as it sets up, you'll notice that it contracts a little bit and leaves a little bit of a valley. And I'll go back with one more skim coat of the mortar to fill in that valley. Now, another important note here, you don't want to leave a huge ridge of mortar on your seams. You really want to feather that out, and you want that to really be little more than a skim coat because you don't want to interfere with your tile set that'll be coming up here in a few days. Because the whole reason for putting down your Durock cement board underlayment is to have a perfectly smooth, level, and stable substrate to put your tile on top of. So don't make that seam a big ridge. So as you can see, with a little bit of careful measuring, some cutting, and just being careful with your installation, installing a cement board underlayment in preparation for a tile floor installation is really not that big of a deal. Now, in part 3, I'm going to cover the installation of shower niche framing. This is not difficult work to do. It's little more than cutting some stud lumber, making sure you install it level and secure, plumb and square in preparation for the Durock installation for the tub and shower surround. So I look forward to seeing you back for that video, and thanks a lot for watching this episode of Do and Brew. And hey, consider subscribing to Do and Brew. Here's a couple of videos I think you might be interested in, including part 1 of the Bathroom Remodel Series. Good luck on all your projects, folks. I'll see you here next time on Do and Brew.